Today we have a very interesting guest, Yannette James. You may know her through Calypso as Oshun.
No politician running me from me country. Foreign businessman running me from me country. Hey, no Chinese man, no, they're running me from we country. I taking my stand, they're running me from we country.
Honorable Member for Miku South.
She's been a youth parliamentarian.
Madam Speaker, in this my maiden address in this house, I would like to comment on some fundamental concerns where our people and country are involved.
She's also a young cultural activist and actually deeply involved in the folk traditions in her community. She is a community organizer, actively campaigned for Jeramiah Nobbert.
Yes, people, yes, we're on the line already, getting ready to go, ready and ready. Whoa!
You don't know.
Jeramiah Nobbert is the new member of parliament. I mean, pandemonium. People are coming out and they're celebrating because this is a moment in history.
He won his seat in Miku North, creating history in the process. He flipped a traditionally solid UWP seat. It had never gone Labour before.
I reach at my home, I put myself in my section, I see my family them gather around, I know it's a family reunion. So they ask me who I rather, I tell them it's Jeremiah. Watch my sister, watch my mother, watch my father. I say it's Jeremiah, I say it's I rather.
So Yannette James gives us an insight into that campaign, and we discuss some of the issues that the youth vote has dragged into the spotlight. So we're in the community of Monrepo, and we have a very special guest with us, and she'll tell us exactly where we are in a while and who this place is named after. And you were just telling us a while ago that you voted for the first time. So welcome to the club. Certainly good to see you. Oshun, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Welcome to Monrepo.
Right. So this place, we're in a park here which is named after somebody who owns a preschool. Tell us the history behind that.
Yeah, teacher Joni Smith. The preschool was owned by her mom, and I cannot tell you how long, but my mom attended the preschool, wow. So it's been a long time. I went to the preschool, so the park was named after her. Our previous district rep, Honorable Gil Rigobert, was the one who did the park.
So are there other areas named after outstanding residents of Monrepo? Or just you started with this so far?
Monrepo, no, but other places in the constituency, like you have different drives, like you have Sesen Drive, you have Paris Drive, different roads, different places, but just saying Monrepo I could think of.
And we know because of the historic nature of the last elections that Mr. Nobbert, Jeremiah will certainly have some big honor at some point in time in his constituency as well.
I agree. Well deserved.
Right. Now, we have to talk a little bit about that, Jeremiah Nobbert and his involvement in politics and how he's been able to excite youth in the community. You have always been an activist yourself as a young person. I've seen you in youth parliament. I've seen you in Calypso and in culture do so much stuff. I also know you're very active in terms of the community and politics and so on. So what first of all attracted you to get into that level of discourse in the country?
Well, over the past few years, even before I was able to vote, I have a special love for country. I'm a very patriotic person. So while young people tend to stay away from politics, I think that it is the highest and best platform where we can express and contribute in whatever way possible. So I believe, knowing that whatever I do at the post, whatever happens with the current administration, the next administration, it'll have a direct impact on all of us. So why not contribute? So that's why I decided to get involved, be a part of. And every decision made in the country, basically, that's where it begins. In culture, in sports, in everything, basically, health. So I think that's the best place to make an impact is where it all happens. You can direct your ideas there.
But you did say youth kind of don't want to get involved in politics. What about politics that's keeping them away, that's deterring them?
I think it's the notion that it's not important. A lot of people don't understand, although this election was slightly different. A lot of people I had conversations with, they were still, the reasons for voting, they vary. For example, some young people would tell you they're voting Jeremiah now, but because he's a young man, we're giving a young person a chance like ourselves. Others are like because their friends are following Jeremiah. And some are truly concerned with what has happened in our constituency. As you know, Miko North has been loyal to UWP. I was brought up UWP. But I think our people are slowly evolving from that mentality that a color is our savior, and rather we need proper representation and we ought to try new things. Like my grandmother would say, "Tan fait tan, tan quitte tan." So now we're in a new era where it's really nice.
Now, one would have thought, seeing you in youth parliament, seeing you in 2016 actively involved in the campaigning and so on, that you would have probably made a run of yourself as a young person from this constituency. But Jeremiah was the one. I don't know how actively he's been involved and for how long, but didn't you think one time of getting involved yourself?
Yes, I was very much interested. I actually went through the entire process. At the late stages, I withdrew after having certain conversations with various people. I decided to just
And that was for UWP or SLP?
SLP.
Okay.
And then I decided to work with whoever the party chose after. Jeremiah emerged after, so I think there were about seven people, and that sent a message. I think this election, more than any time, even before Jeremiah was the candidate, there was this feeling that the seat would change. Why I felt that way was because the ground felt ripe for change. It's like the constituency, for some reason, was already adamant about wanting a difference. So it's almost like Jeremiah was our icing on the cake and everybody worked together. While traditionally you would have a UWP, SLP campaign independent, this campaign was very exciting. Very, very exciting and very controversial at the same time. I'll give you a piece of both.
Yes.
Exciting because we had SLP supporters, UW supporters, and independent supporters. Controversial because some SLP supporters felt left out. Some SLP supporters felt like they were being sidetracked. Independent people, some of them were feeling like they're not welcome, and UWP people feeling like they're not welcome. So it was a mixture of emotions. It was a very sensitive election. But what that's admirable is Jeremiah's ability to move everybody together. You know, and that's an example not only for Miku North but for our country. When we in crisis, it's really important that we find what makes us common, St. Lucian, before anything else.
So, what had he done even before that helped cement his place in the community as somebody who can unite the community and so on? It wasn't just somebody who was running for office, but there must have been something about him that got young people across the board to say, okay, this is a guy who can advance our cause in the community. What about him? What characteristics that you would attribute to that?
Well, before him running, he's from our constituency. He spent a little time outside our constituency. I know him on a personal level because I was drowning one day, saved my life. So Jeremiah is a charismatic, bubbly individual, funny. I would say very level-headed. He knows what to say, he knows the right things to say. And so, even if people didn't know him, because a lot of people in our constituency didn't know Jeremiah, but Jeremiah coming around and just interacting with people, sharing some of his ideas, his plans, and also the team. The team is very important. He had a mixed team, as I mentioned. And that was the driving force. You have a lot of young people who never participated in politics, really interested because Jeremiah is a young man and we really wanted change in Mikunov, and you had all these people rallying with him, influencing on his behalf. Now, something I learned during the campaign, very important, is that no government, no minister, a minister is like the nobody in the situation, basically. It's the influencers on your behalf, it's the people around you, because you will spend these 5 years and the same people who raise you could easily, especially those who know your strengths, your weaknesses. So yeah, basically it's the community, Jeremiah to a certain extent, and the community by extension.
I will get back to that. I hope you don't mind me asking. I hope if it's too personal, you'll tell me. But that drowning incident, what do you remember about it? Where did it happen?
Jeremiah brother dated one of my cousins, so they were coming around, and one day we were doing Christmas cleaning. We went by the river, and I like to be among the boys, so I decided to take a swim.
A river in Manipur?
Yeah, that's in Mamiko, Davi. And while there, I had my grandfather pants, one of these big khaki pants, so it's like it was taking all the water. I was trying to untuck it, it wasn't coming out, and Jeremiah was there. He saw my eyes, and he was like, just came and, yeah, that day was like, I saw I died.
It's a good thing he was there to save yours. You wouldn't be here to see the victory and so on.
Yeah, and awesome, because I felt more, gratitude was a must because of that, basically, because you don't forget what people do for you or how they help you, no matter how small.
So how different, let's get back to the politics, how different was Jeremiah in that case? Because we've seen a lot of young people come into politics and the youth still saying, well, they're not getting representation, because once youth get into politics, they become like politicians and they forget how they got there. What is different about Jeremiah, and what gives you hope that Jeremiah will be different?
I will be honest with you, you cannot see somebody's heart, but you can see that individual and what they demonstrate. I, like every other young person in my constituency, have decided to listen to Jeremiah, observe his initial stages, how he has behaved, and give him a fair opportunity. For me to tell you that Jeremiah will definitely do or definitely be this or that, I'll be deceiving myself. My expectations are high, but what would happen is these 5 years will give him the opportunity to prove himself as a young man that is different. And I have said it to him, and I've said it on his platform, I've said it to people that I influence and ask to vote for him. The same way I will come to you and ask you for support on his behalf, because my priority is constituency and country. It's the same way if it were to go the opposite side, I would tell you, And I think that's something we fear doing. We loyal to a fault, not understanding that the only way for a candidate to do well is for you to be honest with them. If they're going wrong, to pull them up. You see, like you have people, when the party does something that is wrong, they don't say it's wrong, or they're scared to outrightly call it what it is. That is what is destroying the party even. That's why parties lose. Because if you have a group of people, like the team he had around him, if he keeps the team around him, I believe he'll do well. Because if you have a group of people, different people always talking to you, advising you, do X, do Y, if you listen to them, these same people will influence next time on your behalf. If you treat them like you. So it's almost like these people are the ears and eyes of a community. Your people you have the whole constituency, but you have a group of people that will drive the movement. If you disappoint these people, or if it's almost like UWP lost, because a lot of the pillars, they just swash, break, they just came out. So if your house is like this and the pillar is gone, you must fall.
What is the one or two things that Jeremiah was selling or preaching in the community? What the unique selling points? What are one or two things that convinced you that he would be able to do a good representation for young people in the area?
Jeremiah preaches togetherness. And as I said, for some reason, Jeremiah was or is rather, because we're still here, is the gel between the Labour Party, Independence, and UWP. You have some candidates that might come that people will just not be interested in seeing them. But Jeremiah is that kind of individual that can bring people together. And I believe if you can bring a community together, you're a hero, because it's difficult.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Togetherness is key, but the youth want more than just togetherness.
Oh yeah, on that part, Jeremiah understands the plight of young people, because Jeremiah himself had his own struggles growing up, and I feel because he can identify directly to a lot of the plights of the young people being unemployed or not having equal opportunity, he could speak to that. And being from the area, knowing the talents and abilities of young people here, he could also relate to that, and I believe that that was one of the driving points. He could relate to most of the issues. For example, you have a elitist mentality where they need the people for the vote, but they don't even understand. And with Jeremiah, it's different.
So where you keep mentioning youth. So where do the older folk fit into that? Did they appeal to the older generation, or it was just a youth-based activity?
I believe he appealed to the seniors as well, because for example, a lot of the times, a lot of the people around him rather also, it was a mix. This election was really a mix. It was youth, it was seniors, it was middle age, it was everybody. So he appealed to them in a sense that they too were unhappy with what, because you find, as I say, St. Lucians can be very loyal. So those people who are loyal to Compton, some of them are disappointed in what has obtained in Mico North. And you find even if they did not support Jeremiah, they did not vote, which means they still supported Jeremiah because they didn't want what was happening. And you find some people gave him a chance because he went to them directly. He spoke to people for himself. Before the accident, he would go to them personally and have a conversation with him. I believe the nature of the conversation would change based on every individual.
Now, as you mentioned accident, I was going to get to it as well. How much did that impact him and his decision? Did you see him losing steam at the time, losing interest? How did that impact his move forward?
That was what set him apart, really, his courage. Because imagine when we were like down and feeling out about it, sad, he was the one telling us that God is in control, we have an election to win, continue the work. So even while he was overseas getting his treatment, his team, people were working on his behalf. You have some of the stalwarts of the Labour Party who came, the independents, those who were with Janin, and then you had a lot of young people, first-time voters, people the first time in politics, and everybody just rallying the cause. And so that gave me a lot of hope, especially for, well, Jeremiah is like a beam of light, a hope. You can call him that, because even through everything, he managed to give everybody strength. Like, I'm okay, and we have an election to win. Let's continue the work. Hey, is that done? Hey, how y'all doing down there? So when he came back, he was like, he just put everything back into place. He's there now. We continue. Yeah, but it didn't feel like mission impossible, because the mood was different from what I've seen.
So he was able to gather more momentum as a result?
I mean, people empathized, people were sympathetic, but a lot of it had to do with him as an individual, how he handled it too. Because you find even after his accident, I mean the first month, the 2 months after, people will be sorry for you, they'll feel bad. But after that, our typical person is back to me and me. And so it had a lot to do with Jeremiah as a person, how he held himself even after that. People empathized, yes, but I would not say that had that was the like some people ask if that's the reason he won, or I don't think so. I think it was up and I believe it was something up and coming.
So I was in the constituency in the afternoon, let's say about 2 o'clock, and I spoke to a couple of people in the area, and they were saying that they couldn't have lost it from there. At what point, I know you said the seat was beatable. You knew early up front, early days in the campaign, that this seat could have been won, in spite of the fact that it had remained UWP forever. At what point, I guess, were you confident even before the voting started that this was simply going to go to Labour?
Well, again, people tend to not pay attention to the voice of people, the cries. Our constituency for the past 5 years been switching. For example, just like I mentioned, you have certain people that are pillars. They holding it together. And if these people remove themselves completely, then you know you're in trouble. So when you see that starting to happen, then you know something has changed. So from that time, you know, they're just not associating with that anymore. Then you know that there's a possibility. The impossible can happen or will happen.
We'll get back to politics in a while. What is it, because youth were obviously disappointed that not much was happening. You've been in the creative industries for a while. People in the arts say nothing is happening. What is it that the youth want to see happen, tangible? And we hear people, we're not talking about infrastructure because we had the experience of infrastructure being done the last, and people still didn't go for that. So what is it that the youth want in terms of something tangible to advance themselves?
You see, I think a lot of people, the opportunities are limited. And based on my conversations, one of the major issues, of course, is unemployment among youth, and even the amount of money to get a skill. They cannot afford it. So I think right now what our young people want is empowerment more than anything, so that they could get the skill set to do something for themselves. Now, I'm aware that no government can employ everybody. But what would make me proud is to see this administration or any administration take on the challenge to at least equip these young people with skill sets, give them that opportunity so that avenues can open. Another thing, that's a personal one for me, another thing I find a major issue is that I think over the years we have been lost in an identity crisis. If our leaders don't fully understand who we are as a people, it is very difficult to make decisions that will be impactful in certain areas. So for example, the creative industries over the years, a lot of things that make us St. Lucian, they've been neglected. No funds are allocated. Look at this month, August is supposed to be Laos. You know, St. Lucia is the only island that was given that opportunity to celebrate this feast, which means that we have something nowhere else has. While we capitalize and compete with people with things they themselves have, we never take time to capitalize on what is ours. When we go into the post, little things like that affect how we even vote. Yes, if you understand what these unique things that make you St. Lucian, when you vote with pride. You will not vote for somebody who cannot understand. So I think, hopefully, I'm excited to see, and as I said, this was my first time voting, and this government and after this election would definitely determine my mindset moving forward, how I view governance, how I view politics, how I view contributions and everything on the whole. That would seal it for me, because I think now is an opportunity to capitalize on all these things. You have young people coming up, they don't even know what a traditional wake is like, and that's sad. You have people who have been the foundations of art and culture dying, and they die just with an island telling them thank you. When we look at our sister countries, we wonder why they do so well. Places like Jamaica, Trinidad. It is because they have a greater appreciation for identity. Identity is something we need to emphasize on one way or the other, because eventually we're going to go back to a similar plantation experience. You don't know who you are, so boom, I'll treat you how I want. If you know who you are, you always have that empower that I am St. Lucian and I cannot accept that. Now that's why the outcome of the election had me happy. I understood that people will still believe that, the same thing that I believe. So hopefully the administration, the government realizes that and puts a lot more emphasis on creative arts and culture. And hopefully all these avid folklorists we have, those people who contribute, I think I could probably know, I only know probably 2 people left doing traditional week, singing the songs, telling the stories, and these things ought to be documented. Not only documented, but there's an opportunity for marketing.
Well, the youth and the National Youth Council and Youth and Sports Councils, we've had these for a while, but we're still not, there's still a certain level of dissatisfaction, a certain level of frustration that governments seem to be ignoring the National Youth Council. The National Youth Council leaders have sort of failed youth in terms of giving them direction and so on. What are some of the areas that you would like, as a young person, want to see government concentrate on in terms of giving a youth and the youth agencies better foundation, better guidance, better foundation for them?
I believe if government were to incorporate youth in decision making, it would make a vast difference. For example, we have a youth parliament that occurs only at Independence. There are so many things, so many ideas, so many things that can be brought to the table. The same way they can debate a certain bill, young people can do it too. If given the opportunity, ideas can come out of it. Because going back to Jeramiah, with Jeremiah's campaign, the togetherness motion, St. Lucia doesn't have a proper succession plan. So we have it jumbled up. If we have that involvement at that level to allow young people to also express or debate or question, rather, the decisions, we understand that there is so little time as well. But once is not enough. We should have an input as to the next bill. The same way it should be sent to the youth council as well to go through it, see what adjustments can be made, give suggestions, and I'm not aware that that was being done. Another thing as well is, again, I go right back to identity. We have a problem where our youth leaders now, a lot of them are groomed the exact same way with the politicians now. So what you find is everybody, even if they know it's wrong, even if they know it shouldn't obtain, they sit on the fence when a lot of things happen because they're thinking of themselves. The day St. Lucians will understand that my brother's pain and plight is also mine, our country would change. Because then when you have certain people in leadership positions, they will no longer be slave drivers. They would understand that every decision I make is not for me. Let me put myself on a back burner for a while. It's for my people. And so with the youth council, I think that's one of the places they have failed miserably. Always sitting on the fence, never taking a side for fear of what? Like, victimization is prevalent, it's true. But if we continue in that way, we won't get anywhere.
So I have 2 more questions for you. And talking on the question of youth, there's something I've been looking at in terms of what kind of opportunities you give youth. And in St. Lucia, we've been giving 1 island scholarship to our brightest student. Is that something that should change? Because we have other countries giving us 10, 20 scholarships, but St. Lucia gives 1. Is that something that you'd like to see this government address?
I believe it should be addressed because, even I believe it's something that should be addressed because we have so many competent people. So I believe that they should look for as many as possible to give St. Lucians an equal opportunity to be as competitive as the other countries. The selection process, I would want it to be a fair one, because what you have happening a lot of the times is a lot of people who already have, or who you call from homes that can afford, they are the ones to get these opportunities. So hopefully we see a certain level of equality in the distribution of these.
And finally, we saw the appointment of cabinet last night, and Jeremiah Norbert is the deputy speaker, but I know there's some people who are voicing some concerns about that. What is your own perspective on that?
I don't believe they would take the decision without consulting Jeremiah. I believe it's something that he would have to agree on. In my view, it was not a bad decision, given that when I look at the cadre of people and based on where our economy and everything is now, not saying that Jeremiah is not capable, he's well capable, but I think in 6 months' time he would be more capable, because Jeremiah now is completing his degree. The role of deputy speaker will allow him to meet everybody he probably didn't meet during the election time here in Mico North, find out what Mico North needs first, and for these 6 months he could be there with the people, finding out exactly what we want him to advocate for us, because he is still the parliamentarian, our honorable rep. But I don't believe the role in any way undermine him or anything. I think the role gives him that opportunity to complete his schooling, which is something I can boast Labour Party about. They like to educate their people. And when he's done, assume whatever ministry he desires or work within whichever ministry. I don't think him not having a ministry would affect his ability to work in the constituency. And that's why majority of people voted, because our former rep was a minister, but she was never here. So it gives him the opportunity to maintain connections better.
So I ask you one quick question about creative industries, because you mentioned it earlier and I meant to bring it up. One of the things that we're not far from Dennery, and we know of the Dennery segment, and there's so many musicians of quality that came from Mount Repo as well, and obviously Vieux North is Mico North is pretty rich in terms of talent and so on. You're one of the high-profile people here. But interestingly, we don't have schools of music right around the country to give youth some advantage in terms of learning music and so on. Is that one of the areas that you like to see government now focus on, putting theatre, putting music, fashion designing and those kind of things in school, to at least give youth an earlier start to those talents, those skills?
That's something that would really benefit not only the talented youth but our country, because what I have seen, I do not believe enough emphasis is placed on it. For example, they treat people like me like we have a hobby and we're just doing that for exposure. It takes time, energy, a lot of focus. And of course, I believe God bless each of us distinctly with talents and skills to also help ourselves. So if it's like, what, you contribute in music or you contribute in culture? Guy, you ain't contributing nothing yet. That's the feeling, and it starts at the head. So if these, what you mentioned with the schools of music, they are affordable, giving people the opportunity, a little more consultation too with artists, because a lot of times you find with Carnival heads and with CDF, you only hear of the decisions after they're taken. Not much involvement. And so that's part of the artist's fault as well. I mean, you have to understand your value and market yourself in such a way, and also say no sometimes. Yeah.
Oshun, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we wanted to get your perspective. We know you've been very actively involved, and we wanted to get your own thoughts on this very historic election. Congratulations on behalf of getting Jeremiah elected to Parliament, And obviously, like you mentioned, the work is just starting, and we're hoping to see quite a bit from yourself, and also from Jeremiah and the constituency here. So all the best, and we also look forward to your music as well. What little hint can you give us about 2021, 2022? We know the COVID was kind of impacting people somewhat.
Well, I actually have a lot of material just there, working on it. As I always tell people, you should see the best out of everything. COVID gave us an opportunity to fine-tune our craft so that when things could open up, we could come out better. So yes, I have a few things, but something I would really love to see happen, or I'm trying my best to work on, is identifying and working with these folkries that I have a song recorded, another calypsonian does, a soca artist has, a Denry segment artist has, but we have them there just dying and nothing. So that's kind of my mini project. I want to focus on that, the aspect of maintaining and preserving folk music.
And not to mention, we have the rich tradition of Cecil Discal as well, was not very far from here.
Yeah.
So, Oshun, it's good speaking with you. All the best, and we look forward to having more conversations with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bani pam 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 wadlo bani memwa. Pam 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 wadlo bani memwa.